director of the Opportunity Scholarship Fund. The Opportunity Scholarship Fund is a scholarship granting organization in the state of Oklahoma. We are the largest one, and we offer scholarships to lower income families to be able to afford to attend accredited private K through 12 schools. I'm joined here this morning by many of our fellow supporters. Senator Dave Rader, who is the Senate author of Senate Bill 407, is here. Representative John Eccles is the House author of Senate Bill 407. Debbie Wilson, who's a grandparent of Maddie Taylor and is here to speak about Tulsa Hope Academy. Leticia Peoples, who's a parent of Caleb, and she is here with Crossover Preparatory School, which is an academy in North Tulsa. And Don Fennell, he's the executive director of Mission Academy, which is also a addiction school to help students to beat their addiction and finish their high school. We're happy to be here today to urge our legislators to support Senate Bill 407. We want them to raise the cap so that we will have the opportunity to bring scholarships to other low-income families that need a better learning environment for their kids. Senate Bill 407 is going to ensure that there are tax credits available for our donors to receive the credits that they earn and to provide as much and as many scholarships as possible. Without the passing of Senate Bill 407, up to 5,000 students will not have the access to the education that they need. Now I'd like to turn this over to Senator Rader, who can talk more specifically about Senate Bill 407. Senator?
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning. It's good to see everybody. I trust everybody had a great Easter yesterday. It's good to be here to talk about 407. I've been honored to carry the bill, and I just give you a little bit of history of how I became involved in it. 2 years ago, this bill came up in a Senate committee meeting. I started learning more and more about it at the time, about what the background is and how it came about. Learned that the genesis came about with a Democrat senator and a Republican senator coming together with this idea to say, how is it that we can better help education in Oklahoma to do that? And to do that, two silos came about, one for a public school silo and one for a private school silo, and now the tax credits have reached the point that they've exceeded what the limits are. So to raise that cap means that more kids can be helped. Well, to do that, I was also involved at the time in studying tax incentives that we have in our state. And I learned that for a good tax incentive, to be called a good tax incentive, 3 eligible requirements need to be met. It doesn't hurt the state, it's accessible to all Oklahomans, and it doesn't pick a winner. So in studying this tax incentive, I became involved in looking at the report from Dr. Russell Evans at Oklahoma City University and meeting with him to learn more about it, to learn that this tax incentive, according to his study, in fact does not hurt the state, it helps the state. So at the same time, I had a lot of people in my ears saying, no, you're not reading it right, it doesn't happen. So I took that study to our Senate staff, who are excellent in what they do with their finances and putting together the budget. And I went to our staff economist and said, okay, would you take this report and look at it and tell me what you think? His report comes back to me and says, the report's valid, study's good. The worst case scenario is that this is going to have a 0 physical impact on the state. So if this tax incentive has a 0 physical impact at the worst case scenario, best case scenario is it is actually going to help the state, then I can be for that. But the main thing that this genesis of this bill, that 407 rests upon, is that it helps kids. It helps kids. It helps kids in private schools. It helps kids in public schools. Public school side, we're going to add a little bit more money so they can do some special programs, do some more STEM activities, do more activities like that. We've been looking for a little bit of ways to help our schools outside the 1017. All monies that are coming in are outside of 1017, and all monies coming in are private contributions. These are not state funds. So to be called a voucher is totally inaccurate. These are private dollars that are coming in. And in doing so, if children can be helped, because sometimes whatever school that your child is in, it just doesn't work. We're not throwing rocks, not blaming anybody. Sometimes it doesn't work. There are people in the state of Oklahoma, because this is a great state, that says we will give our money if these children need some help, to help them go find another place where it works for them. At the same time, we have great people in Oklahoma say, I want to help our public schools. How can I help beyond what we're doing now? And we said, here's a great way to do it. And we're going to incentivize you with the best tax incentive in the state. And wouldn't it be good to be known in Oklahoma that the best tax incentive that there is goes for education to help kids? That would be great to be known about that. And this tax incentive is the best the state is modeled after the OMRF tax incentive, but it goes for education to help kids. That's why I'm involved in it. That's why I became asked to become the author of this, because I truly went from being curious to being be convicted that this is good for our kids in our state, and it doesn't help our state. And if we can help more kids in education in Oklahoma, all we're doing is helping our state. That's the background. That's why I want to be involved in it. That's why I want to be the author of this bill. Okay. Now, you got to have a partner to do this. Okay, have an excellent partner. Representative Eccles, we'll let him talk. I don't want to talk for you. Let him talk about why he's involved. Representative Eccles.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you. It's an honor to be here today, and who you're really here to hear from is these families, so I'll keep my remarks brief. But I want to explain why I am for this bill, and to do that, we've got to talk a little bit about, when we talk about why I'm for this bill and why Senator Rader is for this bill. You know, Senator Rader, many of you know as Coach Rader, is a man who has dedicated his life to the training of young men, a man who has dedicated his life to education in this state, and then he comes and does it on the Senate side. I'm very proud of my record on public education. Since I have been under my leadership as floor leader, we have increased the common education budget almost 20%. I think I can argue and win almost any argument that in the history of the state of Oklahoma, I've been the best floor leader for public education. And I want you to understand why. And I want this to be as clear as it could be, because it's about kids. So often that gets lost in the debate. So often we talk about institutions, we talk about anyone other than children. Because frankly, children don't have a vote. Children count on us. With that, why I support Senate Bill 407 is that very reason. I get emails all the time that admit Senate Bill 407 is great for children. What Senate Bill 407 will do is raise the cap to allow 5,000 additional lower income students to have scholarships available for educational opportunities. It will also inject between $20 and $27 million into the public school system. I want to say that again. It will inject between $20 and $27 million into the public school system through this tax credit program, because they'll get more than the $15 million. Then in addition to that, they'll get the extra donations that come with it. Through this tax credit program, we are now allowing every public school in the state of Oklahoma to participate. Every one of them. Right now, it's capped only at those at $2,400. Through this tax credit, we are equalizing the amount of money. Right now, it's not. What we are doing through this tax credit, through this increase, we are equalizing the same amount of money for the public schools as is there for the private schools. We're adding in additional safeguards to make sure that money is used where it's supposed to be used. We're adding in transparency measures. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, we're allowing taxpayers to use their dollars directly to help children. I don't know what's happened in this building where we've decided that every dollar a citizen has is just a dollar they get to keep until the government comes and takes it. I don't know what's happened in this building to where we've decided we are no longer going to allow citizens that opportunity to help education. You know, there are two main arguments I want to get through that I find disingenuous. One argument, and we have some news doing this, calling it a voucher is just disingenuous. And it's degrading to the political process. Someone can have an issue with tax credits. A voucher is where you're taking money from a child and you're moving it from the public school system. If you are watching at home and you are listening to arguments from people who say that's what it does, listen to someone else. That's not what it does. What it does, just like the OMRF tax credit, It allows individuals to donate above and beyond their tax credit liability, donate that directly to lower income scholarships or to your local public schools. The other argument that is simply disingenuous is that somehow this will hurt Oklahoma's education system. You know, I went very, very hard to get rid of the WIN tax credit, which is worth roughly 5 times what this is. A lot of the people now fighting this weren't with me on that, because it's not about tax credits. It's about other things. But when you look at the facts of 407, when you look at what it really does, when you hear these families, when you tour these schools, there's no doubt 407 helps children. There's no doubt that increasing the cap on the equal opportunity tax scholarship will help public education. It's hard to argue that injection of additional money, no matter how many times you do the math, it will help public education, which helps Oklahoma children. It will help these additional 5,000 students, which helps Oklahoma children. And as somebody who has fought, by the way, I looked up under my voting record, I have voted to get rid of roughly 3 times the amount of tax credits that I look to put back in. Roughly 3 times in total numbers. I am very proud to co-sponsor this bill with my dear friend Senator Rader. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I'm proud to set the record straight. It deserves a fair, honest, and transparent hearing, and it deserves to be there to help Oklahoma's children. You know, one of my favorite quotes, we talked about Coach Rader. I call him Senator Rader in this building, Coach Rader outside of it, but one of my favorite quotes is the man in the arena. You know, he wasn't the one who said it, but Vince Lombardi was famous for saying that to his men all the time. You know, one of the things about the man in the arena is what it really talks about is being in there and looking at the naysayers, looking at those that say it can't be done and doing it anyway. We are ready to take a step forward for education in the state of Oklahoma. There's always going to be naysayers whenever everything is done. What I am proud about 407, it is very difficult to attack on its merits. So what's going on is people are attacking on things other than its merits. As you listen to the rest of these stories, I hope you start thinking about children. As you listen to these stories on TV, as I'm talking to you at home, I hope you start thinking about children. Because there is no doubt Senate Bill 407 will help all Oklahoma's children. And I hope it gets an opportunity, and I hope it passes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over and let you hear from some of these parents.
Would you start with me, Maddie?
Hi, my name is Debbie Wilson, and this is my granddaughter, Madeline Taylor. And for quite some time, she was sort of what you would say lost in the system. Her father had been killed. Her mother was moving her from place to place, lots of public schools, and she got kind of lost. Her brothers went into a home, and she was somewhere where we didn't even know where she was at. And I had kept running into Rob Sellers at the strangest places, and I don't know, it was just the strangest thing. But anyway, I had been just really wanting to find something for her. I'd been feeling, you know, that she was lost and having emotional problems and things that were going on in her life. And I was just going to a dinner one night, and I just said, if there is anyone there, God, that can help me with Madeline, I would really appreciate that. And I go there, and there he is, Rob Sellers, right there. And I didn't say anything. He said something to me, and I knew the minute he said it that Tulsa Hope Academy was for Madeline. And from day one that she went there, I mean, he just made everything happen, and it was just a beautiful thing. From day one, she loved the school. She felt safe. She was in a place where she could learn. She was behind, and they got her caught up, and it's just been an amazing place. This is our 2nd year there, and she's getting ready to graduate next month. And if she hadn't been there, I don't think she would be in that position. It's just, I can't tell you how wonderful this school has been. It's turned her life around, and even the counseling that she received there, and people that really, really cared about her. And it's been a wonderful thing for our family to get her in there. It really, really has. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Leticia Peoples, and this is my son Caleb. In Caleb's early educational experience, we found that he had a developmental delay. His learning comprehension was not where it should be. First grade, I took a hard look at that, tried to find him the best school that there was possible. Some of the schools didn't have the proper resources to help him to get to where he needed to be. Second grade came along. He was still falling further and further behind. That was about the time that they instituted that if you're not able to read on a certain level by the third grade, they will hold you back. So as a parent, I went into overdrive trying to figure out, okay, where can I get my son? Where can he get the education that he needs to be on the level that he needs to be? And especially as a young man, you know, our young men tend to give up at a certain point. And as a parent, I could not allow that to happen. So we changed schools again. He was tested and was put on IEP. But still, IEP did not afford the proper resources that he truly needed. We tried tutoring, we tried everything that I could possibly think of, as well as doing things at home by myself. I had been talking to Mr. Philip Abodi. He had been talking about starting the school and the benefits of starting that school, and just kind of hesitant to try another school that in my mind may not even give him what he needed. Prayed through it and kept saying, God, you've got to show me, you've got to help us, you've got to get Caleb where he can learn, thrive, and be a functioning young man in society. He was able to complete sixth grade, graduated. He did make some strides, but it was like they would get him high here, but then he was losing some of the classroom because they were taking him out, making sure that he got some of the things that he needed. We started Crossover Prep Academy in the fall of last year. Still hesitant, still kind of scared, would this be able to help him? In December, he was showing some improvement, but in January, thanks be to God, through academic coaches, smaller class sizes, I got a message from his academic coach, brings tears to my eyes, that my son had A's and B's on his grade level. And that was amazing to me. So for a private school to be able to do what the other schools cannot was a huge benefit to us. And to be able to have that scholarship for him to be able to go was a huge benefit. I wouldn't have not been able to afford to get him there. And so I look at where he is now, knowing that had it not been for that scholarship, he would still be struggling today. So I am thankful for the scholarships that had been afforded, and pray that they would continue on to not only continue to help Caleb, but help other young men as well through Crossover Prep Academy. Thank you for your time, and thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Good morning. My name is Don Fennell. I'm the Executive Director of Teen Recovery Solutions. We are a 501c3 nonprofit here in Oklahoma that operates Mission Academy High School. It is the state's only sober recovery high school. I am not overstating the fact when I say that OSF dollars save lives. So the world that I play in is a world of addiction, and we all have to read the paper to see the deadly seriousness of addiction. And so Opportunity Scholarship Fund dollars, as far as I'm concerned, I can draw a straight line to the lives that it saves. I'm also proud to say that Mission Academy High School, or as our kids like to call it, the sober school. You ask them where they go to school and say, I go to the sober school. So we have never turned a family away for services or for school because of an inability to pay. And that's something I'm very proud of. I look back and about, 75-80% of our kids in the last 3 years were OSF dollar qualified. So it goes without saying that this is a big deal to me. I was thinking when I was listening to the parents that one of the things that separates the small private schools is we can meet these kids where they are. So it's not uncommon for us to get a 17-year-old who would otherwise be a fall semester junior and they're really a spring semester freshman. And because of the services we wrap around what we do, we generally get them to their scheduled graduation time. So I really, really thank you guys for letting me come and tell you about Mission Academy and everything that's going on, the Opportunity Scholarship Fund. Plus, I'm really glad I get to see John again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, JD. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Mrs. Peoples, for all you said and done, and we just thank them for being here. Again, these scholarships provide an opportunity for the best education for all of our Oklahoma families, and they are based on the individual child's learning needs. We want everybody to remember that that this program does not harm the state's physical well-being, and the trade-off of foregone tax revenues through the tax credits is much less than the foregone expenses that go into public schools. These scholarships have not reduced public appropriations. These appropriations have continued to increase while this program has continued to exist. And we ask the legislators now to vote to help lower income families across Oklahoma to pass Senate Bill 407 and get it past the finish line. And with that, we are open for questions, if there are any questions.
Where is the bill now?
The bill has passed the House Appropriations and Budget Committee and is now ready to go on the floor for a vote.
Was it amended, so if it passes the floor?
It was. Would you want to talk?
Yeah. So it was amended substantially in the House. It was published today. It will be available to be heard on the floor either Wednesday or Thursday. It was amended in a couple regards. The amendment today was to increase the maximum amount from a public school district to $200,000. It's an amendment I talked about in committee. And additionally, when the Senate version came over to the House, that's where we added in a lot of the transparency features we talked about.
So currently, as the bill exists, just layman's terms, what does it do?
Yeah, it raises the cap
From?
from approximately
$5 million.
$5 million to $15 million.
Oh, I'm sorry, $3.5 million on the SGO side.
So let's say it raises the cap from $3.5 million to $15 million.
On both sides?
Yeah. So and then it basically, yes, it gets a little complicated. I'd say it raises the cap to $15 million. It equalizes those dollars. It's currently not equal. There's a larger cap under current law for private schools than there is for public schools. It equalizes that cap. It adds a transparency measure with reporting requirements, which coincidentally is word for word the exact language requested by OEA. It lets every public school in the state take advantage of it. And it allows the donations to be made directly to the public schools. The vast majority of the changes that were made in the House were to the public school side of the program to make it more user-friendly.
How does it not have a, this is just, maybe this is why you needed it in the budget office, right? How does it not have a fiscal impact? I mean, I don't use tax credits very much personally, so could you elaborate on that?
Well, it doesn't have an impact to the public schools. Again, let's assume that all 30 million, 15 both sides, were to come in as tax revenue, which, by the way, is a ridiculous assumption. To assume that an industry who takes advantage of this, if we were to get rid of the educational opportunity, a lot of those dollars would shift to, say, OMRF or some other tax credit. So again, but let's take worst case scenario. This is why there's no argument that it's anything but good for public education, by the way. Worst case scenario, all 30 million would have come in. Roughly a third of the budget goes to public education, so that would be roughly $10 million. Pretty easy math. Now that we have made the changes we made inside this bill, and you allow those donations to go directly to the public schools, and you allow any public school to use it, that $15 million in tax credits actually equals between $20 and $27 million, depending on if it's 1 or 2 years, that's going to go for the public schools. Worst case scenario, you are doubling the amount of dollars that go into public schools. Why? You're incentivizing charity. You're incentivizing charity towards our public schools. We already incentivize charity in other areas, specifically in OMRF. But there's no argument that at the end of this, as far as total dollars into the program, it will be more dollars into public education.
Is it a dollar for dollar deduction on your tax liability, or how does it work out?
No, man, it's a 50% credit if it's a 1-year donation, a 75% credit if it's a 2-year donation. That's why I say it will be between 20 and 27 million. We could say 30 million. I guess to use my analogy, it would be more fair to say 30 million because we're taking worst case scenario. I could take best case scenario on the other side. What's great about this bill, though, is while there's been a lot of misinformation, I mean, again, calling it a voucher is just misinformation and just fundamentally not understanding what a voucher is. We don't have to do that on the 407 side. We can literally just talk about what the bill does. And then when you look at what it does for these children back here, that's the other thing when we're talking about total dollars in, and I really appreciate that question, Trace. You always got to lay total dollars into children. Government spending, for the sake of government spending, it has no value. Government spending for the sake of increasing the lives and the well-being of children in the state of Oklahoma, that's where value comes in. And we're allowing exciting opportunities and new growth inside the public schools. We're giving children an opportunity they wouldn't have otherwise had. It's just hard to imagine it's not a no-brainer. That's why things like the Equal Opportunity Tax Scholarship have been both championed on the national level by Democrats and championed on the national level by Republicans. It's only in Oklahoma where it has the problems that it's having, and frankly, it's because of misinformation and not talking about what the bill really does. Thank you for that. If there's any further questions, and if not, I'll be in my office. Anybody can ask anytime. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
11 o'clock will start right at 11.